The sky above Kel'thara Prime burned red. Giant explosions lit up the darkness as enemy ships dropped bombs from space. The beautiful crystal towers, that once touched the clouds, were now broken piles of glowing rock. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires across the planet's surface. Ambassador Kel'thara pressed her 4 hands against the thick glass window of the underground shelter. Her blue skin flickered with patterns of fear and sadness. Outside, she could see the enemy ships flying low over the city. They looked like giant metal insects with sharp wings and glowing red eyes. "How long do we have?" asked General Vorthac, his voice shaking. Kel'thara turned away from the window. Her people filled the shelter. Thousands of them crowded into a space meant for hundreds. Children cried in their parents' arms. The old one sat quietly, too tired to show fear anymore. "Maybe 3 days," she said. "Our shields are almost dead. The power stations are gone. Food is running out." 3 months ago, Kel'thara Prime was a happy world. Traders came from across the galaxy to buy their beautiful crystals and rare metals. Children played in parks filled with singing flowers. Artists created sculptures that floated in the air like frozen music. Then the Vorthac came. The Vorthac hegemony was an empire of bug-like aliens who conquered worlds for their resources. They had no interest in art or beauty or life. They only wanted what they could take. At first, the Kel'tharans thought they would be safe. They sent messages to all their friends in the galaxy asking for help. The Galactic Confederation received their calls. So did the mighty Altharian Empire and the rich trading coalition. But no help came. The Confederation said their fleets were busy fighting other wars. The Altharians said Kel'thara Prime was not important enough to risk their ships. The trading coalition calculated that saving Kel'thara would cost more than the planet was worth. One by one, every in the galaxy found reasons to ignore the dying world. Kel'thara remembered the last transmission from the Confederation. A board official had appeared on the screen, barely looking up from his paperwork. "We regret to inform you that no military assistance can be provided. At this time," he had said, "we suggest you negotiate with your attackers. Perhaps you can reach a peaceful solution." A peaceful solution? As if the Vorthac cared about peace. They had already enslaved 47 worlds. They turned living planets into empty rocks, taking everything useful and leaving the rest to die. Another explosion shook the shelter. Dust fell from the ceiling. A child started crying and his mother held him close. "What about the outer colonies?" asked General Vorthac. "Maybe some of our people escaped." Kel'thara shook her head. The Vorthac found them all. Kel'thara 7 stopped broadcasting yesterday. Kel'thara 9, we lost contact 2 weeks ago. She had tried everything. Secret messages sent through old trade routes. Bribes offered to smuggler captains. Desperate pleas broadcast on every frequency her people knew. Nothing worked. The galaxy was full of advanced civilizations with powerful ships and mighty weapons. But they all had laws and treaties and trade agreements. They had to think about politics and economics. They couldn't just rush off to save strangers. Said a young technician running up to them. The deep scanners picked up something strange. "What kind of strange?" Kel'thara asked. "Ships approaching the system, but they're not on any registry. The computer doesn't recognize their design." Hope flooded in Kel'thara's chest like a small bird. "How many ships?" "Hard to tell. Maybe 20. They're still far away. But, they're moving really fast. Faster than anything I've ever seen." General Vorthac moved to the scanner display. His eyes widened as he looked at the readings. "This can't be right. Nothing moves that fast in normal space. Could it be reinforcements?" asked someone from who. Kel'thara said bitterly, "We've asked everyone. No one is coming." But even as she spoke, she felt something change in the air. The technicians were talking excitedly, pointing at their screens. The scanner showed the unknown ships getting closer and closer. They were definitely warships. Their energy signatures were huge, bigger than anything the Kel'tharans had ever seen. Even bigger than Vorthac dreadnoughts. "They're transmitting," said the communications officer. It's in galactic standard, but the accent is strange." "Put it on speaker," Kel'thara ordered. Static filled the shelter. Then a rough voice broke through. The words were clear, but pronounced in a way none of them had heard before. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Any Kel'tharan vessels? Please respond. We are here to help." The shelter went completely silent. Even the crying children stopped. "Terran?" whispered General Vorthac. "I don't know that species." Zixara's mind raced. She had studied the histories of most galactic civilizations. But Terran meant nothing to her. Where could they have come from? "Admiral Chen," she said into the communicator. "This is Ambassador Zixara of Kel'thara Prime. We didn't send any distress calls to your people. We don't even know who you are." A pause. Then, "We know. We picked up your broadcast anyway. Nobody should have to face extinction alone." Something in the human's voice made Zixara's skin pattern shift to color she had never shown before. It wasn't the careful politeness of a diplomat or the cold calculation of a military officer. It was something warmer, something that reminded her of how her own people talked about protecting their children. "Admiral," she said, "you should know what you're facing. The Vorthac have over 200 ships in the system. They've been bombarding us for 3 months. They're not known for mercy or negotiation." Another pause. When the human spoke again, her voice was harder, dangerous. "With respect, we didn't come here to negotiate." On the scanner, the unknown ships were now close enough for detailed readings. The Kel'tharan technicians gasped as the data came in. These vessels were like nothing in their databases. They were angular and brutal-looking, covered in strange markings and weapon systems that radiated barely contained power. The lead ship was enormous, easily twice the size of anything the Vorthac had brought to the siege. "Admiral," Zixara said, "there are so many of them. Are you sure you can, Ambassador?" The human interrupted gently. "You've been alone long enough. Just keep your people safe underground. We'll handle the rest." The transmission ended. On the scanners, the human fleet began to spread out in formation. They were heading straight for the Vorthac siege ships. Zixara stared at the display, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, there was a species that had heard their calls for help, a people who had crossed the void to fight for strangers. She didn't know who these Terrans were or where they had come from. But for the first time in 3 months, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Admiral Krek. Star stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Claw. His 6 eyes watched the tactical display with growing confusion. For 3 months, his fleet had been slowly crushing the pathetic Kel'tharan defenses. The siege was going perfectly according to plan. Then these unknown ships appeared. "Report," he clicked, his mandibles snapping together in irritation. Lieutenant Vex Cole scuttled over to him, her antennae twitching nervously. "Admiral, we count 23 vessels. Their design is unusual. The computer cannot identify their origin." Kel'thara studied the readings. The ships were indeed strange. Where most civilized vessels were smooth and elegant, these were angular and crude-looking. They bristled with weapon systems that seemed almost primitive compared to modern plasma technology. "Energy output?" he asked. "Very high, sir. Higher than our dreadnoughts, but their technology appears outdated. Kinetic weapons instead of plasma. Chemical propulsion instead of antimatter. Drives." Kel'thara's mandibles clicked, in what might have been laughter. Kinetic weapons? What backward species still uses metal projectiles? The Vorthac were the most advanced military force in this part of the galaxy. Their plasma cannons could melt through any known armor. Their shields could stop asteroid impacts. They had conquered 47 worlds using tactics perfected over centuries of warfare. And now some primitive aliens thought they could challenge the might of the hegemony? "Sir," reported the communications officer, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Kel'thara ordered. A voice filled the bridge speaking heavily accented galactic standard. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force Carrier Indomitable. Vorthac Fleet, you are in violation of 17 galactic conventions and are hereby ordered to withdraw immediately." The bridge fell, silent for a moment. Then Kel'thara began to laugh, a harsh chittering sound that made his crew step back in surprise. "Terran," he said. I've never heard of any Terrans. Where do these insects think they come from? Checking databases now, sir, said the intelligence officer. I'm finding references to a species called humans from a world called Terra or Earth. But, sir, they're not even members of the Galactic Confederation. Their home world is listed as developing status. Kel'thar's laughter grew louder. Developing? These primitives dare to threaten us? He activated the communication system. Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Kel'thar of the Vorthac hegemony. You are interfering with a legal military operation. Depart this system immediately or face destruction. The response came quickly. Admiral Kel'thar, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing your forces. After that, we will consider you hostile and act accordingly. The Vorthac bridge crew buzzed with amusement. 30 seconds? These aliens were either brave or incredibly stupid. Sir, said the tactical officer, should we move to engage? Kel'thar considered. His fleet consisted of 212 vessels, including 4 dreadnoughts and 37 heavy cruisers. The enemy had 23 ships of unknown capability. Send Squadron 7 to deal with them, he ordered. 10 cruisers should be more than enough to destroy these insects. Have them broadcast the battle on all frequencies so the Kel'tharans can watch their rescuers die. Squadron 7 peeled away from the main fleet in perfect formation. 10 sleek Vorthac cruisers, each one bigger than most of the human ships. Their plasma cannons were already charging, ready to turn the enemy vessels into expanding clouds of vapor. On the main screen, Kel'thar watched the tactical display. The human ships were spreading out in what looked like a defensive formation. Exactly what he expected from inferior opponents. Time to engagement? He asked. 3 minutes, sir. Kel'thar settled back in his command chair. This would be over quickly. Then he could return to the important business of breaking Kel'thara Prime's last defenses. But something was bothering him. The human ships weren't acting quite right. Instead of maintaining formation, they seemed to be moving in seemingly random patterns. Their energy signatures were fluctuating wildly, as if their power systems were unstable. Sir, said the sensor operator, I'm getting strange readings from the enemy vessels. Their shields appear to be different somehow. Different how? I'm not sure, sir. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases, and they're launching some kind of projectiles. Projectiles? Kel'thar leaned forward. Metal slugs against plasma shields. Yes, sir. But they're moving very fast. Significant fraction of light speed. Kel'thar waved a dismissive claw. Irrelevant. No kinetic weapon can penetrate modern shielding. Signal Squadron 7 to 2. The tactical display suddenly lit up. With new contacts, dozens of small fighters were pouring out of the largest human ship like angry insects from a disturbed nest. Fighters. Lieutenant Vexcol said. Who uses manned fighters anymore? Automated drones are far more efficient. But these weren't like any fighters. The Vorthac could seen. They moved with impossible agility, weaving between plasma bolts with precision no living pilot should possess. And they were fast. Faster than anything the Vorthac could field. Sir, the communications officer said urgently. Squadron 7 is reporting contact with enemy forces. The main screen switched to a view from the lead cruiser. Kel'thar watched as his ships opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending brilliant beams of superheated gas toward the human vessels. The humans scattered like leaves in a storm. But instead of running away, they were charging straight into the plasma fire. Their ships jinked and rolled with movements that should have killed any crew inside. The first human destroyer took a direct hit from a plasma cannon. Krek kept coming. Its hull was glowing white hot where the plasma had struck. But whatever material it was made from simply absorbed the energy and kept functioning. Impossible, he whispered. Then the human ships opened fire. The sound that came through the communication system was unlike anything Kel'thar had ever heard. Not the clean hum of plasma weapons, but a deep thunderous roar that seemed to shake space itself. Metal projectiles, simple chunks of dense matter, slammed into the lead Vorthac cruiser at tremendous speed. The ship's shields flared and died in seconds. The projectiles punched through the hull like it was paper, sending secondary explosions rippling along the cruiser's length. Shield failure on Void Render, reported the tactical officer, his voice high with surprise. Hull breach on Deck 7 through 15. They're losing power. How? Krek Star demanded. How are primitive kinetic weapons piercing our shields? Unknown, sir. The projectiles appear to be moving at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy is enormous. On the screen, the human fighters were swarming around the Vorthac ships like predators attacking wounded prey. They moved in perfect coordination, striking weak points and then vanishing before return fire could reach them. But it was the human destroyers that truly shocked Krek Star. These small ships were fighting like they had nothing to lose. One of them rammed straight through a Vorthac cruiser's shield array, its reinforced prow tearing a hole in the enemy's defenses. Before the Vorthac could react, assault pods launched from the human ship and slammed into the cruiser's hull. Sir, said the intelligence officer, we are receiving reports from Starpisser. The humans are there boarding us. Boarding? Krek Star's mandibles clicked in disbelief. No one boards enemy vessels anymore. It's suicide. But the reports kept coming. Human soldiers were cutting their way through airlocks and fighting in the corridors of Vorthac cruisers. They moved like demons using weapons that fired metal slugs instead of energy beams. Worse, they seemed to feel no fear at all. Within 30 minutes, 3 Vorthac cruisers were dead or disabled. The remaining 7 were retreating toward the main fleet, their captains broadcasting confused reports about impossible human tactics. Krek Star stared at the tactical display, his confidence evaporating like morning mist. These weren't the actions of a primitive species. This was something else entirely. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships are to prepare for general engagement. It seems these humans want a real fight. But even as he gave the order, Krek Star felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest, uncertainty. Who were these Terrans? Where had they learned to fight like this? And why had they traveled across the galaxy to defend a species they didn't even know? He was about to find out. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. No panic, no shouting. Just professionals doing a job they had trained for all their lives. Reported Commander Torres from the weapon station. Enemy cruisers are falling back to their main fleet. We count 7 survivors out of 10. Casualties on our side? Chen asked. Defiant took some hull damage, but she's still fighting. Ranger lost 2 fighter squadrons. No ships destroyed. Chen nodded. The first contact had gone better than expected. The Vorthac fought like most advanced species. They relied on superior technology and overwhelming firepower. They weren't used to enemies who could take punishment and keep fighting. Admiral, said Lieutenant Park from communications, we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Ambassador Zixara wants to speak with you. Put her through. The main screen flickered, showing the blue-skinned alien leader in what looked like an underground shelter. Her 4 eyes were wide with amazement. Admiral Chen, she said, we watched the battle from our scanners. How did such a small force defeat Vorthac cruisers? Chen smiled grimly. That wasn't a defeat. That was a probe. They were testing us with their weakest ships. The real fight is about to begin. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. The entire Vorthac fleet was moving toward them. Over 200 ships in perfect formation. Admiral, Zixara said, her voice shaking, there are too many of them. You should withdraw while you can. You've done more than enough already. Ambassador, Chen said quietly, 3 months ago we received your distress call. It took us that long to get here because Terra is on the other side of the galaxy. We didn't come all this way to run from a fight. She turned to her crew. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy is bringing everything they have. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. And remember, we faced worse odds than this and won. The truth was, humanity had been fighting impossible odds for centuries. When humans first reached the stars, they found a galaxy already divided up by older, more advanced species. The peaceful ones ignored Earth as insignificant. The aggressive ones saw humans as potential slaves or food. Humans had learned to survive by being tougher, meaner, than anyone expected. When other species built beautiful ships that relied on advanced shields and energy weapons, humans built ugly ships that could take damage and keep fighting. When others followed ancient codes of honor in battle, humans followed only one rule: win. Said Commander Torres. I'm reading 4 Vorthac dreadnoughts in their formation. Those are serious ships. I see them, Chen replied. Signal the fleet. Implement Plan Wolfpack. We are going to show these bugs how humans hunt. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. To the Vorthac, it probably looked like panic. Chen knew better. Her captains were some of the best in the Terran Defense Force. They had fought against corporate fleets during the trade wars. They had hunted pirates in the Outer Rim. They knew how to work together like a pack of wolves. Enemy fleet is closing to engagement range, reported the tactical officer. They're maintaining standard formation. Dreadnoughts in the center, cruisers on the flanks, destroyer screening. Chen studied the display. The Vorthac were fighting by the book. The same book that every civilized species used. Formations and protocols that had been refined over thousands of years. Humans had thrown that book away a long time ago. Launch all fighters, she ordered. Tell Squadron 7 to hit their left flank. Squadron 5 takes the right. I want those dreadnoughts isolated. The Indomitable began launching fighters at an incredible rate. The ship was designed around a new human doctrine. Instead of build,